So, you would like to know the 5 wiener balls exploding move. I understand, for I am a Bullshido master. Just know, once you learn the ways of Bullshido, there is no going back.
11 toes down, take a second to look around, pulling bodies at the ground, a place to ride around, pulling money like a waitress just to make my wages.
So, for those who don't know, I'm actually pretty well versed in the world of martial arts. I've been hitting a heavy bag since I was literally able to walk. I've been in MMA, Pac-Man boxing, Goju karate, any number of things I've been a part of. But there's a certain set of martial arts that I have not been to, and I never intended to go through, where the move sets are a bit, what's the word? Fake. You know what I'm talking about. While yes, kung fu movies, especially the clips of them doing the more flashy moves, are very cool and artistic and stylized, in an actual fight they're not very effective, and in some cases not in the least bit. And while those movies themselves are amazing, the people who practice them and teach those arts can tend to be a little bit out there. And in this world of fake martial arts, it can be as harmless as a middle-aged person just wanting to find a new way to work out and lose weight, and if that works for them, that's good. But it can be as severe as someone essentially being in a cult and getting into an actual life or death situation, thinking that they're going to be able to defeat a mugger with a knife's ass, and they end up paying the price for it. And to enter this wonderful and wacky world of megalomaniacal narcissists, there's no one better than Frank Dux. Now, for those who don't know Frank Dux, I'm just going to list his achievements, and you guys can infer on which ones are legitimate and which ones are less than truthful. Dux is a Canadian-American fight choreographer, former Marine, Taekwondo expert, former ninja, that was a hell of a pivot, Medal of Honor recipient, CIA operative, writer, and underworld fighting champion. So, yeah, you can pick and choose there, what you believe and what you don't. See, Frank Dux's story begins in California, where he allegedly met this, like, Mr. Miyagi kind of figure who was sitting in on a Taekwondo tournament that Dux had entered into, and was impressed by how good of a Taekwondo practitioner Dux was. So, he took him under his wing and taught him in the ways of ninjutsu, of which Senzo had Dux travel with him to Japan at the age of 16 to train him. See, Senzo came from 40 generations of ninja masters, allegedly, and he, what a shock, thought that Dux was his most gifted student, and that it was his dying wish for Dux to compete in the Kumite. Now, if you don't know what the Kumite is, the best way I can describe it is with this. Yes, the Kumite was an event that was allegedly held every 5 years, which was a 60-round death match that determined who the greatest fighter in the world was. The rules were very minimal, if none at all, and the wins often resulted in death, and all of this was entirely secret and wasn't known to the public. And it was a huge deal, the fact of not only did Dux enter into the Kumite, naturally he won, and he was considered the first Westerner to win the Kumite in the history of it. Mind you, during this time in 1975, Dux was also allegedly in the Marines, where he had left his post to go to the Bahamas to enter in this fight, and he also won 3 records in the fight, or broke 3 records in the fight, and won a ceremonial sword after he won. And the records he broke are just insane. It's so batshit. These records being that he had 56 consecutive knockouts, he had knocked someone out in 3.2 seconds of starting the match, and had the fastest knockout punch of 0.12 seconds. Which, who was calculating that, how they were calculating that last one, Mr. Pernamer. You know what I mean? After competing and winning the Kumite, Frank Dux went back into the military and used his ninjutsu training to help him in the CIA during operations and his military career overall. These missions had him in places like Russia, Iran, and he cited that he heavily was involved in the Contras, which means he essentially said, okay, you imagine Oliver North, right? Like Oliver North as like a ninja. Imagine that. Just kidding, you don't have to, it's me. It's me. Also, it was around in the early 80s where he began opening up different ninjutsu schools all across the country, and the style of ninjutsu he taught was called Dux Ryu. It was after opening these schools and getting some nationwide recognition that some folks in Hollywood got a hold of his story and adapted it into a full feature-length film, this of course being the legendary movie Bloodsport, which is a great movie. And Jean-Claude Van Damme is not a bullshit artist. He is a legitimate badass, and he can really do some of the shit he was showing in that movie. You know, Frank, on the other hand, you know. And while I don't want to spend too much time on Dux, I do need to talk about, like, the fucking mesmerizing amount of debunkers he has, because if I haven't made it perfectly obvious so far, 90% of what I've just told you about him was complete fucking horseshit. Directly out of his mouth. His most notable debunker being a man by the name of B.G. Burkett, who wrote the book Stolen Valor, which you can assume what that's about, and in the context of what he wrote about with Dux. In Burkett's book, he had stated that there was no inclination or proof whatsoever that Dux had won such a prestigious medal as the Medal of Honor, and thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, other people that have looked into his story have found no prestigious medal has been given to him whatsoever, nor any other medal for that matter. Now, what they did find is in 1978, he was sent for psychological evaluation by the military for quote-unquote flighty and disconnected ideas. So you can, you know. Also, from what I could dig up, essentially what he was doing in terms of why they thought he had flighty and disconnected ideas is he was telling, like, his fellow soldiers that he was on secret missions from the CIA, and he was given those missions from the director of the CIA himself, William Casey, from the men's bathroom. This also, I think, is important to mention. There's a common trend with these stories about these Bullshido masters and them having some kind of a psychological break from reality, and it being a consistent form of pathological lying. So I wanted to clarify that as well. And as for his original Mr. Miyagi, Shinzo Tanaka, Frank claimed that he died in 1975 and was buried by a clan of ninjas, of which people, of course, looked into a person by the name of Shinzo Tanaka that lived in California. They could not find anyone of that name. And, of course, Frank's defense to that is, well, of course not. You know, he was a ninja and he got buried by ninjas. So, yeah. 100% true. For sure. Also, it's important to mention that there was a James Bond novel by the name of You Only Live Twice, where, like some of you guys know, there was a leader of a clan of ninjas by the name of Shinzo Tanaka. So, that's just coincidence, though, for sure, for sure. And as for Dux Ryu, the martial art itself, from what I've seen from people who actually went to the school, they were one of those schools that taught a lot of the death punch, eye gouge, throat punch, all that shit, where because of that reason they never entered in tournaments and they never had to deal with the realization of, oh, shit, this stuff doesn't work. And, of course, if we're going to talk about Bullshido masters, we, of course, have to talk about the myth, the legend, the even more myth, Count Dante. I almost said Count Dankula. No, Count Dante and his Dim-Mak poison hand technique. And while I started with Frank Dux because I think his name is most recognizable, he wasn't the first of the Bullshido artists. I think that title is more fairly attributed on a large scale to Count Dante. And essentially, I would describe Count Dante as the person who walked, so Frank Dux could run. Now, like Dux, Dante, real name Timothy Keehan, was similar to him in the fact of he did have a background in actual martial arts, to the point of surpassing Dux actually, and having a black belt in karate, along with forming his own karate organization in the early 60s and creating the US's first full-contact karate tournament in Chicago. But that is where the legitimacy of Timothy Keehan pretty much ends. and the myth of Count Dante begins. In 1967, Keehan changed his name to Count Raphael Juan Dante, also claiming that he had participated in secret death matches in places like Thailand, where he allegedly had killed multiple opponents in front of thousands of people. Sound familiar? This is whenever he began placing ads in comic books and magazines claiming he was the deadliest man alive, and that you had the option through mail order to get the book World's Deadliest Fighting Secrets from the deadliest man alive, along with a free Black Dragon's Karate Dojo membership, along with the mail order. And dude, whenever I say that these Count Dante ads are wild, I fucking mean it. What I'm about to read to you is word for word what these ads said. Yes, this is the deadliest and most terrifying fighting art known to man, and without equal, its maiming, mutilating, disfiguring, paralyzing, and crippling techniques are known by only a few people in the world. An expert at dim mak could easily kill many judo, karate, kung fu, aikido, that's not that impressive, and gung fu experts at one time with only fingertip pressure, using his murderous poison hand weapons. Instructing you step by step through each move in this manual is none other than Count Juan Raphael Dante, the deadliest man who ever lived. I mean, I can't say that Dante didn't know how to sell himself. Goddamn, dude. Now, as for Dante's dim mak or death touch, it's exactly what you imagine it being. It's a bunch of, like, you know, Pai Mei from Kill Bill's, you know, the five-finger heart exploding move. It's that. It's a bunch of that shit. It's tapping someone and knocking them out, or making their heart explode, making them faint, all that shit. Also, this is important to mention that later practitioners of Bushido developed the no-touch technique, where they can allegedly knock you out by just telekinesis. And wouldn't you be surprised to know that all these death touch, telekinesis, five wiener balls exploding move, all that shit does not work at all. But here's my question, and this is where the video takes a dark turn. Do these Bushido masters know that? The people they instruct, I don't think entirely know that. There's some of them where they're essentially in full-blown cults, where they'll have a guy who is sometimes barely moving, pretending to just casually touch them, and they're fainting and passing out. You know, so they believe it to a certain extent, but do the instructors know that they're feeding people bullshit? I don't always think they do. I think maybe they do at first, but I think they start to believe it. You know, and this explains what I'm getting into next. Like, let's go back to Frank Dux for a moment. He was under psychological evaluation for essentially delusions of grandeur. Now, if I were a betting man, I would figure, and given the other things I've heard about Frank Dux, is he initially didn't believe what he was saying, but he was so used to saying it and was probably treated a certain way by people and was so good at convincing people that he started believing he was this fucking Mortal Kombat character, you know? And with some of these other masters, I think that's the case as well. And in terms of like the lunacy aspect, Count Dante is the best example of that. Count Dante was the primary figure in Chicago's dojo wars, where different karate schools were competing for competition. Or I guess you can say that. They were competing in competitions, but they were competing for membership against each other, as well as cutting down the competition. And when I say war, I'm not exaggerating. Like, Dante actually tried to blow up one of the rival dojos with dynamite. Which, surprisingly enough, the dynamiting wasn't even the craziest part of the dojo wars. There was one day where Dante actually had organized what is known as a dojo storm, where essentially a bunch of guys from a rival school get together and go to a dojo and beat up the dojo combatants, which is one of the stupidest LARP things I've ever heard, right? Except in this case, somehow they took it even a few steps further. They dressed up as police officers, claiming that there had been a disturbance. From what I gather, the Cobra Hall students did not believe that they were police officers, So they just busted in anyways and began beating the shit out of the people in the Cobra Hall, which led to them going to their rack of fucking ninja weapons and pulling them off the walls and actually using them on the Black Dragon Society members, including stabbing Dante's friend and also secondary coach Jim Konsovic with a 14-inch knife, killing him. And according to the ever so reliable narrator being Count Juan Rafael Dante, this is when he locked the fuck in and knocked out every single Cobra Hall opponent in the dojo, officially saying this is the end of the storm. Which, according to everyone else that was present for the dojo storm, in reality, he had witnessed his friend get stabbed to death and immediately called the LARP off and threatened to call the cops. But you believe whichever one you want to believe. And naturally, an event like this would end up in the courtroom, and I kid you not, it is one of the craziest verdicts I have seen. The judge looked over the case, heard all sides of the story, and decided to acquit all of them and give them a stern talking to, because even he thought that the story was just nuttier than squirrel shit and didn't necessarily know what to do. And his quote of what he told the Black Dragon Society members and all the dojo guys, it's something to behold. Saying, and I quote, "Each of you are as guilty as the other, and I have never seen a crazier pack of lunatics." That's how I'd describe it. Now, if you want to know Dante's thoughts on the whole dojo storm, all you have to do is ask him, where he claimed to have plucked out the eyes of multiple of the dojo hall combatants, when in reality all he did was severely damage one of the dojo hall members' eyes with some unknown weapon. Which yes, he did damage someone's eye, but that's a few steps up from the Pai Mei ripping the eyeball out of people's eyes in Kill Bill. That's just a few steps away from that, bro. Now, for my last story, I would like to mention a Bullshido master who not only claimed to have special powers, but he definitely truly believed he had superhuman abilities to the point where he didn't even need to touch an opponent to knock them out. One of those guys. And with this final story, I'm doing a good job of illustrating why a person like that with a mind state like that can be so dangerous for them and the people they teach. I present to you No Touch Master Runagi Ryugen. And these videos I'm showing of him practicing his no touch telepathic abilities is the craziest shit I have ever seen, and if that's not some cult stuff, I don't know what is. Yes, this is him allegedly showing him fighting droves of opponents at full contact, and all he's using is his mind and his chi abilities to knock them out and knock them away. And like a lot of cult leaders who get so egotistical and full of themselves that they begin believing their own bullshit, Runagi was no different. In 2006, the 65-year-old Bullshido practitioner, Runagi Ryugen, claimed that he could beat up any MMA fighter that challenged him, betting $5,000 on the bout. And well, a shock to no one, a Japanese journalist took him up on his offer. Will I pronounce that Japanese journalist's name? No, because I sure as hell know I'm going to say it wrong. This journalist was trained in BJJ, Judo, and Karate, though. So this was a guy who actually knew what he was doing to a certain level. And what happened? You know what happened. He got his ass beat. Am I going to show you the video of a 65-year-old man getting his ass beat? No, I will not. Is it very damning to why all of this is so dangerous? Yes, it is. And also, to those who go and look up the video after watching this video of him getting beat up, be prepared, because I've seen it, and it's fucking rough. You're seeing a literal senior citizen get the shit beat out of him, is what you're seeing, While I obviously have a big issue with him being 65 and getting his butt kicked, I definitely find it good that all his students were in the room with him, watching the realities of who he was and what he was teaching, and that what they had learned was not actually useful to them and was a false thing to try to learn and could get them killed, depending on what they tried to do with it. And really, that's my final thoughts to this whole video, is that right there. It is dangerous. It is dangerous on multiple levels. It's dangerous to delve into that world and prop up these narcissistic megalomaniacs who essentially start up their own cults to the point where they believe the shit that they're teaching. You know, it's also dangerous to teach these people and try to make it seem like it's legit, because like I said, it could get you killed, you know. Not to mention, I'm sure it discourages a lot of these students for the fact of they don't understand why their master, who they've been training under for years, can do all these psychic chi moves and stuff like that, and they can't. Even though they don't realize that there's no legitimacy to it, and they're essentially being conned, you know. While also at the same time, I feel like if you actually are conned into that, I can't feel bad for you, because unless I was like below 11, if someone tried to teach me that, I'd be like, no, that doesn't work. But I mean, hey, that's the thing about cults, man. They suck you in, you know, and that's what this stuff is cultism. You guys are probably wondering, you know, why I'm not covering Zhu Xiaodong, the MMA fighter out of China who was challenging all of those quote-unquote kung fu psychic masters and shit like that, and beating their asses, or why I haven't covered the absolute lolcow that is Steven Seagal. To be frank, I think that those would be better as separate videos because they're so interesting on their own, but I, at the very least, wanted to lend them credence in the fact of it's important to look into the Zhu Xiaodong story and not believe the shit that Steven Seagal says about himself. And it's not like this stuff is old news. Like, while yes, I think the height of it was like the 80s, right? There's still this Dim Mak and McDojo shit everywhere. There's a lot of schools like that. And it's because of those reasons why I've gotten to indulge in watching a lot of hilarious videos like this.
With a young lady like this, and I can resist. I can fight it. She can't get me. But if she uses that word, me, she actually is able to pull me off of my feet. There are sounds or phonemes that work for every direction.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's a bullshito master right there.